Story of Mr. James Robinson, one of the first free African-American landowners in Virginia. James Robinson, who became known as Gentleman Jim, was widely known and respected in the Centerville, Manassas area during and after the time of the Civil War. His life and home were closely intertwined with the Civil War battles fought in Manassas, and his legacy remains in his many descendants, one of whom is with us today. Mary Robinson Ewell is the great-great-granddaughter of Gentleman Jim and is the author of his story as told to me for the publication Fairfax Stories. About 10 years ago, a class of high school students at Mountain View Alternative High School in Centerville, where Mary and I now work together, realized that they had living history right there at school. Under the guidance of their social studies teacher, Geneva Lindner, and their English teacher, Sidney Brown, they conducted a research project about the life of Gentleman Jim that culminated in this student-produced brochure. And there are copies of this over there on the table for you to take if you'd like later. As mentioned in the brochure, a marker now stands on Route 29 between Centerville and Warrenton, near the site of the old Robinson home. The home, probably built in the mid-1800s, was sold to the National Park Service in the 1930s, but unfortunately burned to the ground in 1993. Pictures of the house and a rich assortment of relics dug up from the site can now be viewed at both the Manassas Museum and the Manassas Battlefield Park Museum. Fortunately for us, his great-great-granddaughter is not housed in the museum, but is with us today to share a piece of the oral history that has been passed down through 4 generations of her family. I give you Mary Robinson Ewell.
Good afternoon. I'm so glad to be here. I can't say I have always been proud of who I am and who I was, because when I grew up and I was told about slavery, it wasn't something that I saw any place I wanted to be. And but today I have to tell you that I am so very, very proud of my great-great-grandfather, Gentleman Jim. I don't know, I'm going to tell you why. And it's because he was born a free African-American slave. At birth, his father, who we believe was Landon Carter, gave him 9 acres. His mother was a slave. Gentleman Jim grew up in the Landon Carter home. And in that home, Landon Carter and his wife had 2 daughters. And their daughters were educated by a man named Robinson, who was brought here from England. And my grandfather, he would always be around, and he learned to read and write. And he prospered greatly from that. He became an entrepreneur. He met my grandmother, whose name was Susan Gaskins. She lived in Prince William County. She wasn't as fortunate as he was. She was a slave. She was owned by her plantation owner, who was John Lee. They had 6 children, 2 girls and 4 boys. Because Susan was a slave, they were the property of her owner. And 2 of my great-great-uncles were sold at auction and taken to, we do believe, New Orleans as slaves. And one was able to come back when the war was over. He started out with a horse, but when he got back, he was on foot. The other one, we don't know. We don't know. We just don't know if he was killed or what. My grandfather, he had a drover's tavern, and it was in Prince William County. It's where the the first and second battle of Manassas was fought. And that is a place where people could stop in for the night on their way to Alexandria, because Alexandria at that time was the big city, and you could go there and trade and do different, buy things. And my grandfather had this tavern that you could stop in, get dinner, spend the night, just play cards, do whatever, tell stories, and sit around. When my grandfather, like I said, was born, he was given 9 acres. But when my grandfather died in October 16th in 1875, he had 1,500 acres. He had managed to do quite well. Can you imagine if the family had that 1,500 acres today?
Wow.
But that's a little bit about my grandfather, and I'm so glad and so proud to share that with you today.